We've got a small break in the weather. It was raining this morning and during the night. And today we're going to walk into Ludlow. We don't really know what there is. We know there's a castle. And that's about all we know so far. So we're going to walk into Ludlow and see what there is in the town. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jill. Behind the camera is Roger. And we are which way now? So this is the walk into Ludlow. It's along a B road, but it's a pretty busy B road, I'd say. And we've been, there's a constant barrage of cars coming past at quite a high speed as well. So you do need to be quite careful if you're walking along here. There is a footpath, but it's not that wide. And it's a pretty busy road. So we're just crossing the bridge into Ludlow itself, and this is the river that we're crossing. I think this is the River Team. And it is wildly high, as you can see. I mean, it's not meant to be as wide as it is, that's for sure, and it is really raging. There's been so much rain recently that all the rivers we've passed on the way in have been flooded over all the fields as well. So, this is a little bit wild, I think it's fair to say. So we're in Ludlow and we're just walking into the town. And we just passed this amazing row of buildings, incredible houses here. And we've got this sign here. It says Children's Outfitter and General Draper. You do not see many drapers these days at all. There's a very old sign as well with the same name on just up there. Quite amazing. We are in Ludlow Castle. And this castle was built by Roger de Lacy between 1086 and 1094. When it was built, it was much smaller than it is now. It stands on a sort of a cliff. The river runs around two sides of the castle, and it stands on a cliff above the river. And I was just reading something about this moat, because interestingly, the moat was never actually filled with water. The moat was designed to be filled with very thorny branches and sticks that were very sharp and horrible and poked people. I thought it was quite interesting that it was never actually designed to be filled with water. Yeah, so it says, the moat has always been dry, filled with brambles, thorny bushes and very sharp stakes, making it difficult for any enemies to cross. And this original bridge would have been wooden, and a stone bridge with a high parapet here would have replaced it in Tudor times. And to the left you can see a blocked archway, which I can't actually see, but there is a blocked archway where an earlier stone bridge would have rested. Oh, it's just over there, there's a stone bridge where it would have rested. And there's also a place where the ice was kept underneath here as well. There's an archway, which I can't actually see anywhere, but might be down the steps over there. This is very interesting. This would have been the original bit of the castle, I'm assuming. This is called Sidney's Gateway, named after Sir Henry Sidney, who lived here from 1559 until 1586, and he was Lord President of the Council of the Welsh Marches. This is the chapel, the round tower in the bottom here is the chapel of St Mary Magdalene, and it was built in the 1100s, and originally behind it that would have extended back to the wall. You can see there's a kind of a pale a bit, and you can see some bits on the floor, so that would have been like a church shape, and now it's just the tower that's left, and the roof sadly collapsed, but they've replaced it. It's very interesting in the middle here as well, but I guess if you're in a castle you do need somewhere to be able to worship, don't you? So these are the state apartments, and that was where Prince Arthur, who was the brother of Henry VIII, was living for a while, and we think he died here as well. And they're known as the state apartments, and they were built for Prince Arthur. No, they weren't actually, they were modernised for Prince Arthur, built in about 1290, and they were basically revamped and made much posher when he came to stay. And there used to be a bridge that came from there directly to the chapel, so that he didn't have to go down and mix with the hoi polloi, presumably. This is the original Norman part of the castle, and this tower here was one of the Norman towers, and it then became known as the Oven Tower because they put ovens in the bottom of it. And there's another tower over there which had a little door in it called a sally port, which was for people who were defending the castle to rush out and get everybody who was trying to attack. And presumably this is where they used to keep the dragons as well. So this is the chapel that we were just talking about, and it's been set up for a wedding. It'll be a lovely place to have a wedding, absolutely beautiful, and it's dry, which is nice. And up there is where the bridge used to come in from the other place, so that the king or the prince didn't have to mix with the hoi polloi. It's lovely in here. It looks absolutely beautiful. It's a very small wedding, but it'll be beautiful. Earlier on I said about Arthur, Henry VIII's brother, and we just read about the fact that actually in 1501 he married Catherine of Aragon, and he brought her here to Ludlow Castle for their honeymoon, which is why the apartments were done up into state apartments. But sadly Arthur was never really very well, and 6 months later he died of the plague, and then of course Catherine of Aragon then went on to marry Henry VIII for her sins, and divorced him 20 odd years later when she couldn't produce an heir. But that's another story. In the late 1400s, there's another little bit of grisly history. Prince Edward and Prince Richard, who were known as the princes in the Tower, were positioned here by their father, who was King Edward, because they wanted them to sort of quell any rebellion by the Welsh. And then, of course, his father died, their father died, and they were then imprisoned here by their uncle, who then later on, well, we don't know whether he murdered them, but they were murdered, and they're known as the princes in the Tower, and their uncle became King Richard III. Whether he murdered them or not is another story, but we know that they were murdered. So what's our thoughts on Ludlow Castle? Well, it cost us £8 to get in, which we didn't think was too bad. And actually it's been really interesting. It's quite a large castle, there's quite a lot to see here. Well, it's all ruins, obviously, but it's very interesting. And yes, I would definitely recommend it. If you're in Ludlow, come to the castle. Oh, and we also bought, by the way, a little 50p guide, which was definitely worth it, because it just gives you an overview of the history. Definitely worth the money. We were drawn to this building when we were walking up the street up there. It's absolutely stunning, and it says it's the Feathers Hotel that became an inn in about 1670. And then this balcony was added in the 1900s, oh no, sorry, in the 1800s, when it was used for electioneering, but it's absolutely stunning hotel. The carving on here is quite amazing. Sadly, it's fully booked today, so we can't go in for lunch, which is a bit of a shame, but there you go. So here we are today at Croft Castle. This is about a quarter of an hour from where we're staying, just outside Ludlow. It's a National Trust property, and we got here a bit early because we thought it would be nice to go for a walk, but sadly all the walks are through fields which are just completely like quagmires. So we started a walk, and then I'm afraid we just kind of wimped out because we just thought we did not want to get soaking wet. So we didn't actually go on the walks, but now we're just going to have a little look around. The castle opens at 11 o'clock, and we're looking forward to going inside. It would be interesting to see what it's like. After we couldn't manage to walk because it was too muddy, we decided to come and explore this little church behind me, which is absolutely gorgeous. It is attached to the castle, but it's not attached to the castle, if you know what I mean, because it's not managed by the National Trust or anything. And it's lovely inside. I mean, it's very, very old, dates back to 1400 and something, but it is absolutely gorgeous inside. So if you're here, do have a look at that as well as the actual castle. So this is Croft Castle. It's quite a small, compact castle. But it's lovely inside, you know, it's very historic. It's dressed up for Christmas at the moment as well. And it's definitely worth a visit if you're in the area. I was just trying to avoid the umbrella getting in the video. Yeah, it's lovely inside. It's very much a family home rather than a defensive castle, because I don't think it was ever built for defence. And what we did learn was that the family had to sell it in 1746 because somebody lost a lot of money in South Sea investments, and they rebought it back in 1923. So they've been here 100 years since they rebought it back again. Very interesting. So this is the walled garden, and it is absolutely enormous. There are loads and loads of fruit trees, fruit shrubs as well. There's glass houses through there. It's absolutely huge. Considering the castle itself isn't very big, this seems disproportionately large to me, but it's quite magnificent, and the walls around the edge are absolutely amazing. It must be lovely and sheltered in here. Particularly if there's a wind howling around outside, I'm sure that it must be absolutely fantastically sheltered in here. It looks like they grow a lot of stuff as well. Well, having just said about the walled garden, we've just come across this bit here, and it says this is the Croft Vineyard, and these vines make 300 to 400 bottles of white wine a year. Not many vines here either, but that is quite incredible. So today now we're at Berrington Hall. We were at Croft Castle this morning. This is Berrington Hall, and we wanted to video it in the sun. The sun is out, but it is still raining, but never mind. It's quite an impressive building behind me. 17 something I think it was built, but we haven't actually been inside yet, so I can't tell you. But it looks very nice from this side. Nice dark clouds behind it and a rainbow as well. Oh, lovely. So this is the Berrington Hall walled garden. I think it's even bigger than the last one that we went to be honest. And this is the kitchen garden, so this is where they grow all of their vegetables. There's also some roses and things in there, and then that is the fruit side, so that is the orchard side of the garden as well. Again, a beautiful wall all the way round, nicely protected from any strong winds that might be coming in. There's damsons and all kinds of things growing against the walls as well. And there's a huge potting shed in the middle. This is the potting shed I was talking about, and as you can see it's quite enormous. The other thing I was going to mention was about pineapples, because at Heligan, which is very close to where we live in Cornwall, they have a pineapple pit, and they actually grew their own pineapples here as well, and it says that the pineapples were never to eat, they were just to put on display so that everybody could see how wealthy you were. So we visited both Croft Castle and Berrington Hall today, both very interesting. Neither of them were huge places, but they both had a massive walled garden. And we were just looking at how much land they owned. This one has just over 4,000 acres and Croft Castle has about 3,500 acres. They still had vast walled gardens for the size of the house that they've got, I think. But very interesting, both of them. So this is the second time we've been into Ludlow since we've been at the campsite. And we really like it. There's lots of very interesting buildings, lots of medieval buildings like this one as well. Lots of places to just wander and kind of have a look. We've just been into the church, which was really interesting if you're in the town. And yeah, it's a very, very interesting place to come and see. Highly recommend it.